Hey students, it's Leah. Today we're talking more about Paul the Apostle. Now you'll see also his name is referred to as Saul. So when you see Saul, just know that's also Paul. We're going to talk about how Paul knew Jesus and how he saw Jesus in others. You may or may not know that Paul was not a big fan of the early Christians, and he did not believe that Jesus was the Son of God. He even persecuted Christians for believing that way. But we're going to drop into Acts chapter 9 and discover how everything changed for Paul and how Jesus is a game changer. Saul was still spewing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest, seeking letters to the synagogues in Damascus. If he found persons who belonged to the way, whether men or women, these letters would authorize him to take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. During the journey, as he approached Damascus, suddenly a light from heaven encircled him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice asking him, "Saul, Saul, why are you harassing me?" Saul asked, "Who are you, Lord?" "I am Jesus, whom you are harassing," came the reply. "Now get up and enter the city. You will be told what you must do." Those traveling with him stood there speechless. They heard the voice, but saw no one. After they picked Saul up from the ground, he opened his eyes, but he couldn't see. I think we could easily say that if we were blinded by God's light and heard the voice of Jesus, our minds would be changed too, right? But God knew that Paul would need more than just this one-time encounter. From this moment on and throughout Paul's life, he was surrounded by mentors, teachers, friends, and even his students who helped him see Jesus more clearly by the way they loved Paul and those around them. Through his encounter with Jesus on the road, and also through seeing the example of Jesus in those around him, Paul would see Jesus as the key to a whole new way of living. It wasn't about rule keeping anymore. It was about grace, love, and this radical idea of an actual relationship with God. First, there was the enemy made friend, Silas. Silas was someone who Paul would have previously been completely horrible to, even threatening his life. Silas could have had every right not to help Paul because he was his enemy. But Silas listened to God and had compassion and forgiveness for Paul. I wonder what that would look like today. What would that look like to have someone showing compassion on their enemy? If it were me, I'd need God to change my vision of others. Kind of like how Paul got blinded and needed to start seeing things differently. It makes me think of those cool glasses you can get during Christmas time. I've got a couple right here. These 3D glasses I have. If you put them on and you look up at the light, it makes all the reflections look like, snowmen right here. Check that out. Or Santa Claus, or even reindeer. Oh man, it's pretty fun. You should try them out. So in a way, I think of Paul and those around him being able to put on these kind of glasses. But instead of candy canes and snowmen and reindeer, we're able to see people how Jesus sees us, with compassion and mercy. Another way Jesus made himself known to Paul was through a man named Barnabas. This was a man who, risking his reputation and his position as a church leader, took Paul in, and he finally persuaded the disciples to accept Paul as one of them. Barnabas is a lot like a friend who doesn't listen to all the gossip, but accepts you for who you are. This kind of friendship reflects Jesus' forgiving grace and his desire to be a friend to the outcast. Paul would later go on to mention many of his friends who were examples of Jesus' love for him. In fact, in Romans 16, he mentions more than 30 names. What's cool about the story of Paul is that it shows us that we can be Jesus to the people in our lives, and what a profound impact that can make. And also that God can use all kinds of people from all walks of life to show us the love and image of Jesus. So when you're chatting with your friends, classmates, or even that person you just met, try squinting a little and see if you can spot the Jesus in them. You don't even need these fancy 3D glasses. Seeing Jesus in others, it transforms how we treat people, how we build connections, and how we make a positive impact on the world. You may just be the Jesus that someone else needs today.